his girlfriend, Bill Curtis, one night was
I think we have a tie. Don't you? Yeah, I won. What does the earth do to the water? I said that backwards. Yeah, the earth soaks up the water. So the earth symbol wins over the water. Okay? What if somebody made the sign for water and somebody made the sign for fire? What does the water do to the fire? It puts it out. What does the fire do to the earth? It burns, right? Fire burns the earth soaks up the water, but the water puts out the fire. So you need to find a partner. Sit with a partner on the floor. Okay? Find a partner. Sit with a partner on the floor. And I'm going to give you each 3 very valuable things here. These are snail shells. Shells are very valuable to Shawnee children. These snail shells you're going to use. If you lose, then you have to give one of your snail shells to your partner. Okay? Everybody get 3. Everybody has a partner? You have a partner? I'll be your partner. Can you be my partner? Okay. Now,
look, Dad.
What?
Look at me.
Yeah, I see you.
In the camera.
And put your hands behind your back.
Dad, bend down again.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Nika. When you say Nika, make a symbol real quick.
Ew. You have a pimple on your chin.
Water. Both of you make the symbol at the same time and see who wins. Remember, water puts out the fire burns the earth, and the earth soaks up the water. Okay? So let's try. Put your hands behind your back. 1, 2, 3. Nika! You did water and I did water. We're a tie. I did water. Okay? I did water.
Oh, so excited.
If one of you wins, then that person has to give you a shell. Okay? So you can play on your own, but say 1, 2, 3, Nika. Ready? 1, 2, 3, Nika. Fire burns the earth, doesn't it? You won, so I have to give you one of my shells. Okay. The earth soaks up the water, so you won that time. Oh, you have fire? Fire burns earth. Ready?
Those embers will be falling into the other piece of wood. So we have that. Let's see if we can try another one. I'm sure the secret to this is the right notch. I think the good. You want to give it a try?
Oh, he's starting the fire. He's right here.
We're experimenting with these fires. Check this.
Is he going to start his fire?
And
Look, there's a bow.
it's very unlikely I'll start a fire. Like I said, I've got about a 25% success rate. I am not anywhere near as good as the old people. I have a friend of mine that can do this in about 30 seconds, which I have never achieved. I'll give this one more try, and I'll show you why trade between the Indians and the white man flourished. And that works even worse. Anyway, by this method,
She got some of them. I think it's not so.
now this in charge of this can here.
That's one of my best hobbies. Speaking of never let them, I don't want to give myself a hobby now.
Why the train came. Now I have to get turkey cheese. Okay, I have
It's like they put something glue on it. Glue on something to say.
Yeah.
I haven't achieved yet after many hours of working research. Would you like to try? How about you, man?
No thanks. Hello, I want to welcome you to the Shawnee Festival. I'll come up closer. They told me my voice doesn't carry. I am pro-woman. I'm the nation's mother. I'm also a clan mother. I'll talk a little bit about my outfit. Snow Owl. He'll talk about the men's outfits. You'll notice different styles of ribbon outfits for the women. Some of one of our ladies out front has a dress with ribbon work on it. A lot of us wear two pieces. We have the leggings. Before the Europeans came over, our outfits were made of leather, mostly deer, which was a soft leather. And they wore wraparound skirts, and then the tops were one piece if it was small that would come down and be laced, or two pieces with scallops on the bottom. They wore the leggings for warmth in the winter. They would wear them maybe in the summer to keep from their legs being scratched by briars, thistles, things like that. When the Europeans came over, they brought the calico prints and the cotton materials and things. They traded, and they would trade. The women like the orange hook tops and things that they didn't have before. And the ribbons for decorative. The only time they would wear an outfit like this would be their ceremony council gatherings. Leather takes a beat of cotton. So I have beadwork on my yoke, and underneath it's just a plain top. My skirt has ribbon work. I don't have ribbon on my top. You'll notice some of the ribbon work on the different outfits. And the colors are whatever you decide you want to use. I wear a lot of blue. Red's my favorite, but I don't have red. The dance shawls the ladies carry, and there is a women's shawl dance that you will see. I'll introduce our drummers. Step to the side. Pop Coke is our principal chief. Burcoat's my son. Snow Owl is one of our drummers, and the Wogway, the one that told me I got to introduce myself because I forget sometimes. They're our drummers and our singers. But right now, the Wogway's needed out here. Snow Owl will be doing a dance demonstration. Melissa will be doing a little bit of history for you. And I'll walk on stage. My daughter will be talking about the different dance, and they'll be doing dance demonstrations. Are you going to try it? Okay. So then when they're done, they're going to ask everyone to stand up and form a circle and do a friendship dance with them. Thank you. I hope you enjoy yourself today.
Bizon chena ashawandase ayiye megwich nikas shawano ahok gatimanek. In the language of the Shawnee people, I just said to you, hello, and a true South Wind people's greetings. I said thank you for coming today, and all of us are very, very happy to be here today. That's the language of the Shawnee people. We have not lost our language. We still speak it. It's not as fluent as it used to be, but we still retain about 75% of the vocabulary. Just out of curiosity, how many of you heard about this festival through television? Anybody see it on TV? A couple people? Okay. How about newspapers? Did you read it in any newspapers? We're just checking to see how well our media did for us. How many of you heard it on radio? Some? And how about just word of mouth? You heard it through a friend? That's great. That's fantastic. Girl Scouts, great. Okay. You know, most of the history of the Shawnee people, whether it's in novel form, whether you read about it through other types of books, probably are more familiar with the prehistory. Not too many people are familiar with the history of the tribe after the Battle of the Thames in Canada, when our great war chief Tecumseh was killed. Most of the history of the Shawnee people are prehistoric, with our ancient ancestors all the way up until Tecumseh was killed. Even in history books, as children, when we're in junior high and high school, the history books stop when Tecumseh was killed. And everybody says, well, what happened after that? What happened to the Indians? This is what we'd like to share with you today. If you'd like to read a little bit about the history of the Shawnee people up until Tecumseh's death, Sunset Watcher, James Alexander Tom is here. He's doing a book signing, and he's the author of Panther in the Sky. That book is the most accurate historical account of the Shawnee history of our people. I recommend that you read this book. It's spellbinding. It's a wonderful book to read. But what we'd like to share with you today is a little bit of the history of the tribe, what has happened since the Battle of the Thames in Canada. So we'll begin there. It'll just be a brief history so we can get on with the dancing. After that battle and after Tecumseh was killed, the survivors of that battle, all the warriors and their families, got together and they held high council to try to decide what to do. Their chief was dead. They weren't quite sure what they should do. Should they split up and go their own ways, or should they try to hold together as a Shawnee tribe? It was decided in council that they would remain together, but they would remain in Canada. You see, at the time, in Ohio, most Indians were being removed from Ohio. The Canadians welcomed the Indians. They didn't want the Indians removed. And there was a sort of a false story that all white people, Europeans that came to Ohio, wanted the Indians out. And that's not true for the most part. The white people that were in Indiana, Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky, they were friends with the Indians. It was the American government that wanted the Indians out. Well, anyway, when we were in Canada, the Canadian government said, you're more than welcome to stay. So we stayed there for quite some time. But by about 1821, most of our people were getting very homesick. They were homesick for their Ohio lands, Indiana, West Virginia, and Kentucky. And they decided to start moving back. So they left the community there in Canada and started trickling back into these 4 different states. Now, as far as the American government was concerned, they thought all Shawnee people had already gone. They were too busy getting the rest of the Indian tribes out of Ohio with the Indian Removal Act of the 1930s. So the Shawnee people that came back to Ohio, they came to areas where they wouldn't be found. They went and homesteaded in the hills where the farming probably wasn't all that good compared to the rich bottomland areas where our farms are today. They went to the northwestern corner where it was kind of swampy, stayed there a while too. But one of their favorite places to go, especially in Ohio, was to go live with the Amish people. Believe it or not, the Amish people welcomed the Indians into their families, welcomed them into their communities because, hey, they had these huge farms and they needed help. The Indians were more than willing to help. They were very, very good at farming, but they were very, very good at butchering. I mean, even young Indian children learned to butcher a deer at a very young age. So when it came to butchering the cattle and the other types of animals that the Amish people had, hey, they were great at it. Now, believe it or not, the Amish people loved the Indians. When the American government started getting a little suspicious, or they came around to take the census, they'd say, who is this person over here? Believe it or not, the Amish people just flat out lied. They said, oh, that's Cousin Jeremy. He's from, I made up something, he's from Germany. Oh no, he can't speak any English. He got here 2 weeks ago. They didn't speak a whole lot of English, but they learned it, and they learned it well. So for many, many years, these people from Canada kept trickling back into these areas. The funny thing about it is they did learn to be farmers, and they learned very well. They got back together. Then there were three factors in the early 1900s that began to change for Shawnee people. In the very early 1900s, there were many Shawnee communities in those 4 states. They knew where each other were. They still held their sacred ceremonies in secret, and they did all the things. They taught their children the Indian ways, but outwardly, publicly, they were just like anybody else. The 3 factors that really changed this and was sort of devastating to the Shawnee people, number 1 was World War I. Shawnee people loved this country. They wanted to fight for this country. So many of the men left the Shawnee communities at that time. They left the communities to fight for their country. That changed a lot of people's lives. When they came back, they kind of didn't want the rural life anymore. They wanted to move to the cities, and they wanted to become more like everybody else. So we lost quite a few people from the communities at that time. The second factor was the Great Depression in the early 30s. Everybody had to go to work in order to survive, no matter what that work was. And you couldn't very much exist in the small communities that they had at that time. The third one was World War II. Almost every available male went to war, and that left the women to go to work in the factories. So even some of the women from these communities went to work at that time. They made some money. The people after the war, they found out what a little bit better life would be than living on the communities. And by the 1950s, believe it or not, there were only 54 Shawnee people left in the surrounding communities. Everybody else had dispersed and gone their own ways. In 1950, the principal chief was Rev. Pope, who was the grandfather of our chief today, Hawk Pope. It was up to Rev. to hold the Shawnee tribe together for fear that it would become extinct. As Hawk was growing up, our chief Hawk, as he was growing up, his grandfather taught him, pounded into his head all the things that he possibly could, the language, the customs, the ceremonies, all the things that had been historic throughout the past. When Hawk was 30 years old, he was pronounced, or he was, by council, he was, what's the word I'm looking for? He was elected chief. Since then, he has been able to travel around, he's been able to contact people, he's done so much for the tribe. He started a tribal newspaper. That newspaper is still being published today. And as of 1989, we made history. With his leadership and with the help of many, many people, a lot of hard work and labor, the Shawnee Nation United Remnant Band was able to do something that no other Indian tribe ever, historically, was able to do. We purchased some land in Champaign County, Ohio, which was one of our original homelands. We actually purchased it the white man's way. We got it back. Now we're up to 64 acres. And it's land we feel that's ours forever, and we'll have to battle it out in courts if anybody wants to try to take it away from us this time. So we don't think that will happen. We're very happy to be back in Ohio, to have a piece of our Ohio homeland. We want to be Ohioans. We want to be citizens of Ohio. We're here because of you. We want to share our culture and our heritage with you. We find that it's very important educationally for you to learn about us, and we'd like to share that with you today. If you'd like to just take a look around, there are so many things that we'd like to share with you. Right now we'd like to share some dancing for you. Meg Witch. Can we save that until after the dance? Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Bazan. I am Cajon Mendigo. Snow Owl. I'm here to kind of explain some of my outfit, demonstrate some dance for you, and hopefully make some new friends. The headpiece I have on is a typical woodlands headdress. It's called a roach. Because of the great woods that we lived in, the feathered bonnets that our brothers out west would wear wasn't practical in the woods. So we would wear a head roach or a turban or just a few feathers tied right next to the head. That was so that the feathers that we had earned or had been given weren't destroyed by running through the woods or just in general travel. Most things that we wore was designed that way. The leggings that our brothers in the West would wear had fringe down the sides. You notice mine doesn't have that. I have center seam leggings because the fringe would get caught in the briars and things as you walk through the woods, and all the time he'd pulling at you. So there was, by location of where we were, kind of dictated how we dressed. So, breech plow was common. Leggings, depending on the time of year, depending on what the style of legging that you wore. There was one style of legging that had a long thong on it that come down to a piece that just was right above the knee. That was worn basically in the summertime, so that it was cool. The full legging was wintertime dress. The shield was originally, designed as a defensive weapon. It's used now in dance, just as it was back when our ancestors would dance. The dance staff that I carry is adapted over from the lance, since we're not a warring people anymore. It's not practical to dance with a lance, so we use a dance wand, dance staff. So that kind of gives you an idea of what it's like. So that will kind of go into dance. So if you went to a powwow, you would see several different types of men dancers. You have your fancy dancers, which are the dancers who are very colorful. Their outfits are all real bright yellows most of the time. They're real pinks, oranges, whatever. They usually have two bustles. They have a bustle at their shoulders, they have a bustle at their waist. They get very acrobatic, they're very energetic in their dancing. Most of the dancers are very energetic anyway, but the fancy dancers seem to be more so. Then you have traditional dancers. Traditional dancers will have more traditional clothing on. They will have a single bustle at the waist, and it is usually made of feathers that are naturally colored as it would come from nature. You would have what they call grass dancers. They have an outfit that they will have colorful yarn now hanging from about their knee to the ground, to the ankles. Their arms will have the same color yarn on it, and just like a fringe. And then you would have out west, they have another group of dancers. I forgot their name, but it'll give you an idea how to, if you went to a powwow, that you might be able now to tell the different types of dancers and know what's going on. There's a dance troupe that was down through here early this year, towards the end of last year, I think, out at Miami, the Native American dance troupe. Those dancers are chosen from dance contest winners. So to give you an idea of They have competitions in the dance, and the people who represent the nations in that dance theater are the best that people can find together this show. But you're stuck with me, and I'm just kind of everyday type thing. I tend to be a traditional type dancer, so that's kind of how I dress.
So the first kind of dancing is just called women's traditional dancing. It's very simple, it's very reverent. We do carry or wear shawls, which is just another way for us to show our reverence to Creator. Because when we dance, it is a form of prayer for us. We dance in a circular motion because we believe that harmony and the balance of the universe is all within the circle. If you look in nature, you see circles in almost every shape, and this is very special to us. So what we'll start at the beginning is just a women's traditional dance, and then we'll show you some quicker step dancing.
Oh,
done by the single women in the tribe. It's meant to show your agility and your lightness on your feet. And the young women in the tribe did it to sort of show off to their bows, like showing their stuff. It's traditionally not done by married women, although we do have some women in the tribe who do it for the sake of demonstrating it to other people. I'm going to sit this one out, but we will have some women showing you what is called fancy dancing or shawl dancing. What they're trying to do is mimic things like butterflies or maybe a beautiful bird that swirls and sways and just nice. Back this way. Way back here. Dancing all day long. You have to understand these women are so aerobically in tune. Just incredible. Try it at home. Give it 30 seconds or so. All right. It is very tiring, yes it is. Especially when it's done very well. It's very hard. We'd like to do a friendship dance with you. We call it also a round dance. It's something that's very simple to do. It's a side step. Put your foot out and bring the other one up to it. Very simple. It's done as a social dance by us. You don't have to have a shawl. You don't have to have clothes. So anybody who would like, we really invite you to come on up, and we're just going to do a very simple friendship dance.
It's a friendship dance. Everybody needs to come up. We're all friends here. Come on up and join. It's real easy. Just step in side to side.
If we go around the chair, just that make it around the chairs. That's what I was going to take. Yeah. I think we can do it. I think more people will come in if they think of it. Okay. All right. Guys, why don't you come around that way, okay? Go around the chair. We can step back. Yeah, we can cut it short.
We're going to make it through here. Can we go through here? Can we join the line here?